We've just published the new winter edition of the Price Predictor Index, and it shows that Western Australia, Queensland and South Australia are the key places where real estate consumers should be focusing their attention. While this winter 2022 survey of sales activity across Australia shows a marked decline in the Sydney market, we have identified Perth, Brisbane and Adelaide as the capital cities where sales activity remains strong and prices are tipped to keep rising. The regional areas outside these three cities are also overachievers. Now, Perth has 21 suburbs on our national top 100 list of supercharged suburbs, and that's more than any other city in Australia. The next most represented jurisdiction is regional Queensland, followed by Brisbane and Adelaide. And regional Western Australia and regional South Australia also have a disproportionately high number of inclusions relative to their size overall. And these rankings reflect the overall strength of these markets based on the level of sales activity. Perth, Brisbane and Adelaide have all maintained high numbers of suburbs with rising momentum, as have the regional areas in each of these states. Some of the highest levels we have ever recorded in the 7 years of our quarterly surveys. Perth, for example, has maintained sales activity at well above normal levels for the past 6 quarters. Brisbane also has had 6 quarters running of elevated sales activity, while Adelaide has been well above historical averages for the past 5 quarters. There are strong markets right across Queensland, led by regional centres in central and northern areas of the state. In regional South Australia, both lifestyle locations and industrial areas, including the Iron Triangle towns, are booming, while both lifestyle and mining centres have strong markets in Western Australia. All are market jurisdictions where the latest price data indicates values are continuing to rise, in contrast to the 2 biggest cities. Now, turning our attention to what's happening in the Sydney market. Economists, commentators and writers often make the mistake of believing that Sydney leads the nation on real estate trends. If Sydney is up, they declare Australia to be booming, and if Sydney is falling, the nation apparently is in decline. But the reality is usually different. Sydney is often the exception to the national rule, and we've seen that frequently over the years. Right now, the Sydney market is doing something that few other market jurisdictions in Australia are doing. There has been a significant decline in sales activity in the nation's biggest city. The sales volume data shows that the Sydney market actually peaked in the middle of last year, and in the second half of 2021, there was a notable decrease in the number of suburbs with rising momentum. And then in the first quarter of 2022, this became a significant slump. And subsequently, there has been evidence that this is now translating into price decline in Sydney. And it's important to note that the Sydney slump occurred well before interest rates started to rise. But this winter 2022 survey of suburbs and towns across Australia has not found any other instances of major markets dropping dramatically like Sydney has. Most still have strong levels of sales activity, and they continue to produce conditions in which prices will rise. And up to this point, price performance has continued to be prolific in most locations across the nation. Genuine nationwide property booms are rare in Australia, and it's equally unusual to see every single suburb in a city or region producing annual growth in their house prices. But that's what we've seen in multiple market jurisdictions across Australia in the 12 months to April this year. In Brisbane and in Hobart, every single suburb has recorded annual growth in their median house prices. In regional Victoria and in regional Tasmania, every town and suburb also has had price increases over 12 months. And in many other market jurisdictions, there have been only a handful of exceptions to that, so that 99%, but not quite 100%, of locations have recorded annual growth. And those places include regional Queensland, Perth and Adelaide, regional Western Australia, Canberra and Sydney. In Darwin and the Northern Territory, every location except one has had rising prices, and both Melbourne and regional New South Wales have had rising prices in 98% of locations. In many jurisdictions, the level of price growth has been extraordinary. Suburbs and towns with rises above 20% are the norm, and many have topped even 30%. So overall, the state of markets around Australia continues to be strong, and the conditions exist in most market jurisdictions for prices to keep rising.